My name is Errone, and this is what the Lord has done for me. So I grew up in a Christian home. I was raised in the church. We would go to church every week. But unfortunately, there was a lot of brokenness in my family. My parents were never married. They didn't tell me that they weren't married. It was something that I actually found out about just on my own. I noticed that there were no pictures of their wedding or anything like that. And I never even felt comfortable enough to ask them about why they never got married, because my parents were always there for me physically. Like, they provided all of the things that I needed, but they weren't really there for me emotionally. So whenever I had a concern or a problem at school, I would go to my mom and I would try to talk to her about it. But she would kind of be very dismissive, and she would always say, "Oh, well, it'll be all right, don't worry about it." And there was a time I can remember when I wrote a poem to God, and I used to love to write poetry. And this was my first poem that I wrote to the Lord. And I was so excited about it. I think I was like maybe 6 or 7 years old. And I showed it to my mom because I was so proud. And my mom takes a look at it, and she's going through it, and she's reading it, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, this is all right. I mean, this is misspelled, and you could have worded this differently." And then she hands it back to me, and it just completely shattered me. But those were the types of things that would happen all the time. And so because of this, I just didn't feel like I had an outlet with my parents, so I would keep a lot of things inside. And unfortunately, by the time I was 10 years old, I was sexually assaulted by one of my female cousins. So I was 10 and she was 14. And she blamed me. Essentially, she said that I was the one that did this. She said, you better not tell anyone. You better not tell your mother, because if you tell her, you're going to be in big trouble. And unfortunately, I believed her, because this particular cousin, she would live with us over the summers, and she was always very manipulative. Like, I can remember a time when one of my uncles, he bought 2 Native American dolls for us, because we're both part Native American. And we were playing with our dolls, and then one day she says, "Hey, let me see your doll." And so I hand it to her. She takes it out of my hand, she breaks the head, and she hands it back to me. And I say to her, "Hey, why did you break my doll?" And she said, "I didn't break your doll, you broke it. You see, it's in your hands." And so it would be little things like that all the time. And so by the time she abused me and she told me that it was my fault and I better not tell anyone, I just believed her. I was so manipulated by her that I just believed it. And I didn't tell anyone. So I kept it inside, and I tried to block out the memory of what happened to me for many years. I tried to forget about it. And I did. For a while, I actually did completely forget about it. But unfortunately, I began to have same-sex attractions to girls at school. I noticed that I would look at them more than I would look at the boys. I would fantasize about being in relationships with them. And I would try to force myself to like boys in school, but it was just never something that was attractive to me. And so I struggled with this secretly. And by the time I was about 13 years old, and I had a cell phone, I would go online to different apps and chat rooms and stuff like that. I would download these apps, and I would talk to what I hoped was girls at the time, because online you never know who you're really talking to. But I supposedly was talking to girls around my age. And I hid this from my parents, I hid this from my friends. And I was living a double life. So during the day and around my family and my friends, I am a good Christian girl, but behind closed doors, I'm having these illicit relationships with girls online, or whomever I was speaking to online. And unfortunately, this continued up until I was in high school in freshman year. I had a friend who touched me inappropriately, but she was joking about it. And I remember we were getting ready to get on the subway in New York City, and she touched me, and I freaked out, and I had a panic attack. And she was like, "What's wrong with you? I was just joking." But what happened was, in my mind, after she did that, the flashback of what happened to me at 10 was rolling in my mind, and I couldn't stop the thoughts of that, and it just brought up all the trauma all over again. And I freaked out, and I just couldn't even deal with it. I had all these emotions come up. I had all of these feelings now for the girls at my school. I tried to keep myself from being attracted to them, because I knew if anybody noticed that, they would know what was going on with me. But unfortunately, I couldn't hide that anymore. And so I began to talk to girls at school. I would try to keep it private as much as I could, but a lot of people were beginning to know, okay, something's different with Errone. And by the time I was 15 years old, I'm thinking, okay, maybe this isn't so bad. I told one of my friends, listen, I think I like girls. What should I do? And she told me, I don't even know why you're worried about it. This is normal. People are like this. I went to a public school. I didn't go to like a Christian school or anything like that. So I didn't have like Christian friends to tell me anything otherwise. And deep down, though, growing up a Christian, I knew that this was wrong. But I really, to be honest with you, I really wish that somebody would have told me, Errone, this is not right. I think I was looking for that, but the words that I were getting were words of affirmation in the lifestyle that I felt I needed to live. And so I decided to do that. And so I was a little bit more open about my lifestyle about this time. And also around this time, my father actually began sexually abusing me as well. And it happened when I was at his job for the first time, and it continued up until I was about 17 years old. And it wouldn't happen every day, but it would be here and there. And I just completely was broken after that. But I did tell my mother, and unfortunately my mother didn't protect me. She allowed my father to still come back to the home and to try to talk with me, even though he lied about what happened and said, oh, nothing happened, I don't know what's wrong with her. And I just felt completely betrayed. I was betrayed by my father. I couldn't trust him. I was betrayed by my mother. She didn't protect me. And now I might as well not trust God either, because he gave me these parents. I didn't ask for them. And so I was done. I was done with church. I was done with faith and all of those things. And I just completely left the church, and I went headfirst into the gay culture. Had multiple girlfriends, was very open about my lifestyle. I would have boyfriends at times to just try to cover, because I didn't want my family to know what was going on. And they were starting to catch on, like, oh, why doesn't she have a boyfriend yet? So I would finally have a boyfriend just so that they can be appeased by that. But I was miserable, and I was so miserable that I started drinking, and I would drink every day. From the moment I woke up, I would have a beer, and I would drink it. This was my routine every single day. I would take drugs recreationally. I would indulge in playing even video games up all night, because my escape was, at the end of the day, I still have to be confronted with my thoughts, And I didn't want to hear any of how I was feeling or thinking. So I said, all right, I'll stay up all night and play video games. So I did that. I would listen to heavy music, just anything I could listen to or do to drown out the voice of the Holy Spirit, and to also make myself just numb. And so eventually I got so bad and so depressed that I just completely broke down. And the Lord finally was able to reach me in that time of being completely broken. And I heard his voice very clearly. And he said to me, Errone, you need to read my word. And I had got so tired of hearing that every day that I finally just said, all right, I'll do whatever he says to do. So I ran in my room, slammed the door, and I yelled actually audibly out loud to God. And I said, God, if you want me to read your word, where do you want me to start? And he said, where do you start any book, Errone? And I said, from the beginning. And he said, yeah, that's a good place to start. And so I began reading the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. And I told God, I'm not going back to church, though, and I don't want to hear from any pastors or my parents. If you're real, you can reveal yourself to me yourself. And so I challenged God in that way, and he did. He revealed himself to me. He was revealing his love for me. And through that, I began to fall in love with Jesus. And the more I fell in love with him, the less I had any desire for anything of the world. I hadn't even prayed anymore about praying the gay away, because that didn't work or anything. I just completely fell in love with him. And as a result, everything else just began to shed. Not all at once, it took years, but one thing after another. He stopped me from drinking. I never asked him to do that, but he did. One day I woke up, I had no desire for alcohol. He took the drugs away, he took the same-sex attraction away, all of it just went. And I was amazed, because I didn't have to really do anything to change myself. All I had to do was fall in love with him. And the more I fell in love with him, the less I had any desire for anything of the world. And so I would just encourage anyone, if you are struggling, if you have been broken, if you are experiencing trauma, if you are experiencing an identity crisis, please run to Jesus, because he is all that you need, and he alone is the one that can heal your brokenness. And I just praise God for what he's done in my life, and I know that he can do the same for you. Thank you.